Welcome to the Autism Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Janeen Herskovitz, and it's my goal to help you create a more peaceful home while living with autistic and neurodivergent loved ones. Each episode, we focus on a different room in the house and help you create a peace plan for your home. So let's get started. Welcome back to the Autism Blueprint Podcast. I am really excited about today's episode because I have two amazing guests with me. Local authors, local to me here in Florida, Jeffrey and Laura May, and they have written a wonderful children's book called Our Amazing Minds, and I can't wait for you to hear their story. So in this episode, we'll be chatting about their journey as parents to their son Jackson, who was diagnosed with autism, and Jeffrey and Laura will share some of the challenges that they faced in understanding and communicating about autism, which ultimately inspired them to create a resource that helps educate kids about the spectrum in a fun and relatable way. We'll also dive into the unique characters they've crafted for their book and the heartwarming feedback that they've received from families who've read it. Plus, they'll share their hopes for fostering understanding and kindness among all children, which I think is so important right now. So join me in the library today and let's jump in with authors and parents Jeffrey and Laura May. Well, Jeffrey and Laura May, thank you so much for coming on the Autism Blueprint podcast today. How are you guys?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Doing great. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure to have local authors on the podcast today. You guys are in Florida, and we found out that we live in the same town, which is really exciting for me.
Really cool.
Yes, we're excited to be here.
Awesome. So Our Amazing Minds is the name of the book that you guys wrote. What inspired you to write it? Was there like a moment in your family's story that stands out to you? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our son Jackson is 10 years old now, and he was first diagnosed with autism when he was about 3.5. And so that was something, it took us about 2 years to actually get to that point with him before we received the diagnosis. But what we did when we first received the diagnosis is we went into research mode. What are the resources we need to put in place for him, the therapies, all that kind of stuff. And so we spent the next several years doing all of that. It wasn't until he was in second grade, I think. So he's around 7 or 8 years old. We started to think through, how do we communicate what autism is to him? We realized he had friends in his class that would ask questions. Why do you flap your hands? Why do you do this? And we thought, oh my gosh, we've never thought about how to communicate this to him or communicate this to children. And so that's what got us started on then looking for resources to help educate children on autism. And we bought all kinds of books that were out there, and we never felt like this one totally makes sense. This one totally clicks, right? Because it's a spectrum and every child looks different. So that's where we came up with the idea, well, we can't find what we're looking for, so why don't we create a resource that shows all different sides of the spectrum, and maybe he could find himself in pieces of different characters. And so that's kind of what inspired us to get started a couple years ago.
I love that story. And I hear that so often from parents of autistic children, and just kids with any challenges in general, that they create the resource that wasn't there for them. Right. Yes. And that's how I ended up creating my private practice. When my son was diagnosed, I didn't feel like I had therapists that really got it, for me. Like, he was fine. Right. He was going to be just fine. Yeah. I didn't know if I was going to survive it. Right. So, yes. But I just love that so much. So tell me a little bit about how you approached creating autistic characters who feel authentic rather than feeling stereotyped. That's a real challenge there. And you've handled it beautifully in this book.
Well, thank you very much. One of the main things we wanted to do was just showcase like the fact that autism isn't just one race. It isn't just one gender. Like it affects, everybody. So in doing that, we wanted to create 4 characters that showed the full spectrum. We have one character, Martin, in the book. He's non-speaking. He uses a tablet to communicate. One character, gets frustrated when she's doing something and she's pulled away from that task. We wanted to create these characters showing the challenges that they face, but also we wanted to create the authenticity through friendship. We wanted to really challenge the stereotype that these kids with autism, they're loners, that they want to be by themselves. We wanted to show them in relationship with each other, navigating this world together. And that's really one of the focuses we had, was showing these characters through friendship.
Oh my gosh. And I love that. It's so different for a children's book about autism. And I've read a lot of them, and I get sent books all the time. And a lot of times, the message is just kind of for that one child with autism, right? Whether it be a level 1 or level 2 or level 3, however you want to, kind of categorize it, but they can all be so, so different. And I think that you've captured that really beautifully. Did you make any of the characters, like when you created them, were they based on people? Were they like a conglomeration of different kids that you knew?
It's really just a conglomeration. A lot of it is a lot of things that Jackson does, right? And so we didn't want to put all of his personality and traits just into him in the book. So we pulled out some of those things. He's one that gets super frustrated if you pull him away from a task without having any warning, right? So we put, for the communication, he used to repeat short words and phrases. Now he talks differently. So we kind of took a lot of the things that he has done or still continues to do and pulled those traits into different characters. And then for Martin specifically, we know there's not a lot of books that have representation for non-speaking individuals. And so that was really important to us, to make sure that we showed that in the book, and that those children are still extremely valuable. They still value friendships, and they can still be included and a part of these things.
I loved that part so much, mainly because I have a son that communicates with an alternative form of communication device. And
cool.
Yeah. And it's, you never really hear stories about friends that can speak and my child, right?
Right.
They just kind of seem like they're worlds away. So,
right.
I loved that message. Who do you see as the primary audience for Our Amazing Minds?
It's a really interesting question, because we originally said this is for anyone that has an autistic child. And then as we were writing it, we realized, no, this can be for everyone. This can be for the siblings of autistic children, to help them understand more about their sibling. But ideally, I want every neurotypical family to have this book as well and educate their kids, because autism is now 1 in 31. Like, there's going to be an autistic child in every classroom, on every sports field, in every church. Like, even if your family is not directly impacted by autism, we think it's so important to educate your children on what autism is and how to befriend autistic individuals.
Yeah, one of the most rewarding things so far has been parents telling us that they bought the book because a kid in their child's class has autism, and they want them to, feel included and know about them. And it's just been really, really rewarding.
Oh, I love that. And so that kind of goes into my next question, which is, this seems like a book that can be for parents, educators, caregivers, parents of neurotypical children. I mean, that's really wonderful. Tell me a little bit about what's been the most, I know you've said that already, that you've gotten feedback that you didn't expect. What's been the most meaningful feedback that you've received? Do you have any stories about how it's affected kids or parents?
For sure. I would have, that's an easy one. There was a story recently, a lady whose son is 13, got the book for him, and he read it, and he said he finally felt like someone understood him and the things that were going on in his head. And she said he reads it every single night. So yeah, I know.
Oh my God.
Been awesome.
Wow.
And That's what we want. We want these children to feel seen and understood and loved for exactly who they are and how they were created. So, yeah, I'll say that one was super impactful to us. Another, I think, was this mom that I met. Her son is 5, and she said, I had never even thought about how I'm going to tell him one day. And I got so excited. I was like, tell him now, start talking about it now. Like, we don't wait. And so it was really exciting and rewarding to feel like maybe we could have an impact on that 5-year-old child, that will have a greater sense of self-identity and worth one day because his family started talking to him about autism in a positive light early on.
Yeah. And also Jackson, our own son, getting him reading it and asking 1,000 questions. That's been really cool as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. So he was like your first test case for reader, right? Like, that's amazing. What does Jackson think about all of this?
Oh, he thinks he's famous. He wants to sign everyone's book.
Awesome.
We spoke at an event in South Georgia not too long ago, and he came with us and he said, can I hide behind the stage and pop out at the end and show everyone that I'm real? So he thinks he's a rock star.
I love that. And that's amazing for his self-esteem because he's helping other children with his story.
Yes. Yeah, it was really cool. Right after the book came out, we gave a lot to teachers at the school and things like that. So he took it to his 4th grade classroom, and his teacher projected it up on the screen and he read it to his class and then took questions from them. And I was like, we're just so proud. Like, that's almost 30 more children that are more educated on autism today than they were yesterday. And that's our goal.
And there's Jackson being a leader.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I mean, he's doing things I would imagine that you never imagined he would do.
Correct. Yeah, he didn't really start speaking very much at all until he was 4 years old. And so, those first few years of his life, we had all these questions and worry and concern. And will he ever talk? Will he ever say mama? Will he ever say yes and no? Will he ever make friends? All of the worries that come, with an initial diagnosis and all those things. And so to go from that to 6 years later, he is now educating his classmates is really cool.
That is just so amazing. And as a parent, I know that the little tiny gains that our kids make are huge. So having something that is actually this huge is amazing. I'm so happy for you guys about that.
Thank you.
For a neurotypical child who reads this book, what do you hope that shifts inside them? What do you hope they take away?
I mean, I hope that through understanding that the result would just be a kinder heart. We hope that neurotypical children just leave being more open-minded to all the kids around them. Like, that everybody has a story. Everybody's important. But obviously we want these autistic kids in their sphere to just be seen and understood by them. That's really the goal.
I think too, I don't want anybody to fear autism. I think that a lot of times people often fear what they don't know and what they don't understand. And so, for neurotypical kids, if they see their peers behaving in a certain way that they don't understand, it's not something you have to be afraid of. It's something you can be inquisitive about. And it's okay to ask questions. Autism is not a bad word. And so we can say it, we can talk about it, we can learn, and hopefully that moves us to a more accepting, welcoming community.
I love that, and much needed right now, especially. I'm so proud of you guys for putting kindness into the world, really.
Thank you.
It's really lovely. You have spoken before about believing autism is not a limitation, but more of a reflection of being, as you guys say, fearfully and wonderfully made. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we are Christians. We're a Christian family. And so we believe God does not make any mistakes. And so, however you are designed, however He has created you, we believe that He has a great purpose and plan for your life. And we hope that all children believe that they have worth, they have value, and it's okay to be exactly who you are. You don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to hide it. For these kids, you don't have to mask, just be who you are.
I love that. I really, really love that. You mentioned that you were using the book as a vehicle to tell your own son. How old was your son, if you don't mind me asking, when you did tell him, and how did that go?
Yeah, so that's been recent, probably a couple years ago, I would say.
Yeah.
And he had a ton of questions. And I think some of that stemmed from he was starting to notice other kids asking him questions about, why do you flap your hands? Why do you talk the way that you talk? So I would say initially us navigating that world was a little difficult, but obviously with the help of this book, it's just really come full circle in his feeling self-worth and confident.
And I think too, it's not just one conversation that parents have.
Yeah.
Once we started to have that conversation and say, yeah, you're autistic. This is the way you're created. This is why you behave the certain way that you do, whatever it may be. That wasn't a one-time conversation like, okay, check, we told them. We don't have to do this again. We started to really weave autism into regular conversations. And so it's something as simple as we're driving somewhere. Maybe we haven't driven to this place in 3 years, but he's in the back seat telling me where to turn and where to go next. And we say, Jackson, that's incredible that you remember this. You have such an incredible memory. That's because of your autism, right? And so we're pulling out and pointing out some of the incredible strengths that he has in regular conversation and also the challenges. Yeah. He mentioned recently, we took a family trip up to North Carolina and took a ride on the Polar Express train. And it was really challenging for him. And he said afterwards, it's because of I'm autistic, and it was so loud, and it was a new experience, and that bothered me. You're exactly right. That is why. So it's a regular part of conversation. It's not just, hey, you're autistic. Let's answer your questions and not talk about it again.
Yes, I love that. So you've weaved it into just daily conversation in the same way that I think we would do with a neurotypical child. Like, oh, look how you did that where you couldn't do that before.
Exactly.
It's just a different way of looking at how their brain processes the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. How do you?
We do.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say we have the same conversations with his sister. So he has a younger sister who's 7, and she's affected by his autism and his needs and things like that. So we have regular conversations with her as well around what this means and what it looks like and how it shows up in daily life.
Yeah, absolutely. So is she excited about the book as well?
She is. She is. She wants to be included in the next one. So we have all kinds of ideas for future books and things we could write about. So when a second one comes out one day, you will see little JoJo in the book as well.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, we think the second book will probably revolve around the family dynamic and the sibling dynamic. So she wants a feature as well.
I love that. And that is much needed, you guys. I was going to ask you what was next for you guys as authors and as a publishing company. There's just so many opportunities, as you probably see things every day where you're like, we could write about this, we could write about that.
Yes.
We have a long list going.
Long
Yeah.
list.
We have ideas for, like he said, the family relationship, but spin-offs, books for each character, and a book for Martin, and using an AAC device and what relationships look like for him. We have ideas for how to navigate the holidays or birthdays. All these things are different for kids on the spectrum. So we've got at least 100 more books coming out one day.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And, one of the things I really liked about it, and this for me was different, is you would show that one of the characters was struggling, but you wouldn't necessarily dig into how are they going to cope in this situation. But you do say that they figure out coping, with their adult or with their caregiver or their teacher or whoever it is. And I liked that. I really like that because every child's going to come up with a different way to handle that situation. It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah,
For sure.
Thank you. And that was kind of one of the challenges in creating the book, because we wanted it to be broad, but also encompass some of the different challenges. And so it was interesting trying to get specific things in there and keep it more general so that more children could find themselves in these characters.
Nice. Could I ask about the challenges in writing the book? I'm just thinking, I tried to write a book one time with my husband and it didn't go well.
For sure. I mean, I think the biggest challenge was to write a book that could relate to a kid on a early reading level, while at the same time having the educational components of autism and trying to hit all of those at the same time. So not, trying to create verbiage that would still get the point across while still resonating with a younger kid. I would say that was probably the most challenging thing.
Yeah, that was a huge challenge. Yeah, we hired a developmental editor because we've never written a children's book before. Neither of us went to college and said we want to be a children's book author one day. So we didn't know what we were doing. And that was the editor's biggest piece of feedback. You have Jackson as the narrator of the book. We're trying to make it extremely educational, but in our first draft, we were using terms that adults understand, not a child reading this book might understand.
Yes, which I'm excited about, because when a parent is first navigating autism, if I'm throwing all those terms at them, in my office, they're looking at me with this blank stare. I'd love to be able to hand them a book like this and say, you know what, let's start here.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I never thought about that.
As a parent, what life's gonna look like, and without all of the psychobabble attached. Like when you say explain it to me like I'm 5, that's great, because now everybody can understand.
Right.
For sure. I mean, that being said, we hope adults take stuff away from this book as well. We've been in situations where we've told somebody that Jackson's autistic, and they've been like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And we've been in situations like that, and it's just like, I would like you to read this book. I think let's understand these kids together.
Oh, I just love that. Well, I so appreciate you guys coming on today and telling me about your story. Is there anything else that you want me to know, or that you were hoping I would ask?
I don't know. I think we covered everything.
Yeah, I don't think so. Where people can find the book?
Oh, yeah.
I would love that. Where can we find it?
People can find paperback and hardcover copies on Amazon and our website, ouramazingminds.org.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm going to ask one last question before you go that I ask everybody that comes on. If every parent of an autistic individual were listening, what would you want them to know?
It's a great question.
That is a great question. I mean, I can speak to the dads. When I first found out that Jackson was autistic, I would say I went through a mourning period, and it was not mourning the diagnosis. It was mourning what I thought the trajectory of the relationship would look like. It's my father-son relationship, or father-daughter, if that's what another dad is going through. what is the relationship going to look like? Am I going to be able to talk to them? Am I going to be able to take him fishing one day and teach him things? So I think it's okay in the moment of the diagnosis to have that moment of navigating through that and maybe a mourning period, but also step up and really support your spouse in helping them navigate the resources, getting them what they need to succeed, for sure. I mean, that would be my challenge to the dads.
Love that.
And then I think my piece of advice would be, don't ever try and change your child to fit into the world. Try and change the world for your child. Don't ever stop fighting for them.
I love that. On that note, Jeffrey and Laura May, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
I want to extend a huge thank you to Jeffrey and Laura May for sharing their incredible journey and inspiration behind their book, Our Amazing Minds. As we discussed today, one of the key takeaways is the importance of representation and authenticity in children's literature, especially when it comes to topics like autism. By creating diverse characters that reflect the spectrum, Jeffrey and Laura are not only educating children, but they're also fostering empathy and understanding among their peers. Another important point that we touched on is the value of open communication. It's crucial for parents to weave conversations about autism into everyday life to help their children understand themselves and their experiences. This approach not only empowers autistic children, but it also encourages neurotypical kids to embrace their differences and build friendships without fear of the unknown. So I encourage you to check out Our Amazing Minds. It's a wonderful resource that can help bridge the gap between understanding and acceptance. And the link to it is in the show notes. You can find it on Amazon and on their website. Well, that's it for today on Autism Blueprint. If you want to be my neighbor or even just a house guest, check out our Patreon Discord community at patreon.com/autismblueprint. Your support helps keep the porch light on, and a huge thank you to all of our current patrons. If you're not ready to become a paid patron, be sure to sign up for free so you can receive updates by email about upcoming episodes and more opportunities to connect. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
The information in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional.